Back now to our special coverage of the indictment of former President Donald Trump. Trump's former attorney and fixer Michael Cohen for many years has, of course, been a key witness in this case. He met repeatedly with prosecutors and testified before the grand jury earlier this month. With me now, Lanny Davis, attorney for Michael Cohen. Lanny, we have been watching this from the sidelines for the last 7 years. You have been intricately involved in all of this. As Michael Cohen's attorney, what's your reaction tonight?
The most important reaction is let the process work, and talking heads and pundits, especially graduates of the Southern District of New York, who are former prosecutors doing gigs on cable television. Instead of prejudging a jury trial and talking about Michael Cohen's credibility and whether he should be doing television or not, stay with the facts in the process. Donald Trump has now been accused, and he's presumed innocent until a jury decides. Listen to what Neal Katyal says as an experienced prosecutor. And he's quoting from the Southern District of New York prosecutors under Donald Trump. If your audience will first start, is this a serious crime? Well, the Southern District prosecutors called Michael Cohen doing this crime, paying hush money, as imperiling our democracy. Why? Because by paying someone not to speak, you're depriving the electorate of information it needs to elect the president of the United States. So anyone who belittles this crime, read what the Southern District prosecutors said in the sentencing memo for Michael Cohen. That's what Neal Katyal keeps reminding your audience, as I do. The second thing is, what are the facts that we're worried about on Michael Cohen's credibility? The jury has to decide whether there was any political motivation by Donald Trump when he directed Michael Cohen to pay the $130,000. If Donald Trump says, no, it was only about Melania and Michael Cohen, and lots of evidence that I've seen with my own eyes, documented evidence, other witnesses' evidence, not Michael Cohen evidence, say that he had a political motivation at the very end of the campaign not to have Stormy Daniels suddenly be revealed. And he's got to convince a jury that he had no political motivation, because any significant political motivation, he's guilty. So I still ask, what is the problem that everybody is seeing other than let's let a jury decide whether Donald Trump lies or whether he tells the truth? Our experience to date is most people have seen him lie. Now it's up to 12 people in New York to decide, is he telling the truth?
I am not knocking Michael Cohen's credibility, but let's talk about what he's in for here, right? We know Donald Trump and his team and his allies are relentlessly attacking Michael Cohen. It was not that long ago. Lots of people in the media, me included, went after Michael Cohen. He is now potentially going to face serious cross-examination. Are you and he ready for that?
Not only ready, but I've been in the room, and this prosecutor team, as Michael Cohen will say himself, he is not critically needed for this conviction.
Did he not go and speak to them for something like 18 different times?
I've been with him.
That feels critical to me.
I've been with him, and there's a lot of verification of documents. Documents speak for themselves. Other witnesses corroborate. What people are missing, which I know, which you don't yet know, but
so tell me.
There is so much corroboration of the fact that Donald Trump was motivated by politics to thwart Stormy Daniels telling her story. And there's so much evidence that he paid, while President of the United States, $35,000 a month checks from his personal checking account to reimburse Michael Cohen for the hush money payments that the federal prosecutors said were illegal, that it is literally beyond my imagination that it's going to come down to Michael Cohen, who receives a check from Donald Trump while he's president, that check was not part of the reimbursement scheme.
Then go further there with me. While we do not know what the charges are, what you just said to me there, he's not a critical witness.
No.
However, he was there 18 different times, because what it sounds like is they are crossing every possible T. They are dotting absolutely every I.
So
Alvin Bragg has such a high bar that he has to meet, and this is unprecedented that we've ever seen this happen. So as a lawyer who went with Michael Cohen, all 18 or so visits to the DA's office, in your experience, the amount of corroboration, the amount of detail and effort that you're seeing this prosecutorial team go to. Have you ever seen that before?
No, and although I'm not a criminal defense lawyer, I've been a lawyer for over 50 years, and I know the difference between lawyers who get into granular detail, build up cases fact by fact, then corroborate facts with documents, then corroborate documents with text messages and telephone calls, and surround every fact with corroboration and documentation. Nobody out there, not one talking head, not you, with all due respect, know the detailed case they have built up over all this time. And I hear talking heads speculating, oh, well, this case is weak. How do you know it's weak if you don't know what their evidence is? Why doesn't everybody keep your powder dry? Donald Trump is innocent until proven guilty, but wait for these prosecutors to show what they have and don't jump to conclusions.
Then are you answering the question Claire McCaskill just had, the frustration that she, like so many other Americans have, of what in the heck is taking so long? Is the answer to that detail? They are going through every possible detail because there is too much at risk to make a mistake here.
I can only say I know Claire well, and I'm sort of like her in a way. What takes so long? And sitting with Michael all these hours, going to New York, sitting in this room, going through these details and details and details. Sometimes I got impatient. But I'm just telling all of you out there watching this show tonight and everything about this case, wait for the presentation of evidence and trust the jury system. Because I'm telling you, there's a lot more detailed corroboration than anybody knows, but I do know that that's the case.
What do you know that you can tell us? So we're not guessing or speculating.
Well, let me give you...
You know more than me. What can you share?
Well, I'll tell you one thing everyone has missed.
Or two things.
Well, I'll tell you 8 things. But
great, I'm here for them.
One thing in the last week is the Wall Street Journal reported that David Pecker had separate conversations with Donald Trump.
Owner of American Media.
And I'm not revealing anything that wasn't revealed in the Wall Street Journal story, but read that story several times. There is another person besides Michael Cohen, and his name is David Pecker, who had conversations with Donald Trump about quashing the Karen McDougal story, which did have a political motivation because he did not want that story to be revealed to an electorate. And
he spoke to the grand jury in the last week.
There is no question that there's another witness about Donald Trump's political motivation in the Karen McDougal case, and that was reported in the Wall Street Journal. Now, it's not just Michael Cohen saying something, it's Michael Cohen saying something surrounded by corroboration, and you have another person besides Michael Cohen saying something surrounded by corroboration, and now it's up to a jury to decide the decision on the facts. The law will talk about, if you want to, as to what I know about their legal theory.
So what you're saying to me is, you don't like Michael Cohen? You don't like Michael Cohen's history or story? Just wait. When you hear what he has to say, there will be 1, 2, or 3 other people that we haven't necessarily named that are going to corroborate what he's saying.
Not only people. Documents speak for themselves. Telephone calls speak for themselves. Emails speak for themselves.
Yeah, but historically, Donald Trump tries not to sign his name to anything, doesn't use email. I mean, he almost, and I want to be careful in my words, but almost mob boss style, notoriously doesn't have a paper trail.
So I am just telling you, I can't tell you more than this sentence. Donald Trump saying nothing, surrounded by people who know exactly what motivated him when he paid through Michael Cohen the hush money, which is a serious offense, according to federal prosecutors, that imperils our democracy. So people who say it's just a hush money campaign violation scheme, no, that's not what the federal prosecutors who sent Michael Cohen to prison, and they said he was directed to do what he did by Donald Trump. Why did the federal prosecutors come to that conclusion? From evidence. So I'm saying to everyone, keep your powder dry. He's presumed innocent, but this jury is going to get a lot of evidence to back up what David Pecker and Michael Cohen say, and then it's up to the jury to decide beyond a reasonable doubt.
Have you or Michael Cohen been contacted today by the Manhattan DA's office?
So I can't tell you about those contacts, but I can't tell you the answer to that. But I will say that in the recent days, I was struck by the level of detail of the questions and answers that Michael had to provide, down to the nitty-gritty granular level. These folks have exactly what you said, Stephanie, Alvin Bragg is not bringing this case without huge amounts of corroboration. And everybody who's speculating about it's a weak case, it's a bad case, it shouldn't have gone first, it's just...
It hasn't even been unsealed yet.
Exactly. They do not know. And the legal question, I just want to say one sentence. I know this has not been done before in all of the issues about federal versus state. They have several state laws that with these facts, a judge is not going to deprive the jury of a verdict because of a legal argument. There are state laws that have been violated, and we'll see whether this judge agrees with me. But in any case, the facts are very strong. A jury could decide beyond a reasonable doubt.
Ani Davis, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.